Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 9 waiver wire ads for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth into 10 different players that I believe you guys should be looking to pick up off the waiver wire right now. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 9 waiver wire rankings. We begin at number 1 with Adrian Peterson, running back of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the LA Rams this week in LA. Derrick Henry is expected to miss 6 to 10 weeks following his foot surgery, but it is more likely that timeline, the more realistic timeline, is 8 to 10 weeks, so he should be gone for the rest of the regular season. Does that mean that Derrick Henry is going to be out if they make it into the playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they will be able to get Derrick Henry back, especially if they make it deeper on into the playoffs. I think it is entirely possible that Derrick Henry does end up returning, but for the rest of the 2021 regular season, it seems as though Derrick Henry is going to be out. The team ended up adding Adrian Peterson today, and I would expect this situation to be very good for Adrian Peterson, to where I believe that Adrian Peterson is going to be the lead back on the Tennessee Titans. Now, this week, he's going up against the LA Rams. So this is going to be a very tough task. They just added Von Miller. So it's going to be very scary for Adrian Peterson in his first game up against the LA Rams. You may want to plug your nose and sit him this week. But I do believe for the future, we are going to be able to start Adrian Peterson week in and week out. Now, do I expect Adrian Peterson to get thrown into this team and him to become Derrick Henry, him to have this crazy workload, this crazy production? Of course not. But I do believe that Adrian Peterson has enough juice left in the tank, enough gas left in the tank to be able to perform at a relatively high level when given the opportunity. Now, again, I don't expect Adrian Peterson from back in the day in a Minnesota Vikings uniform. I don't expect that Adrian Peterson to show up, but what I do expect is for him to be the lead back of the Tennessee Titans. Now, we are also going to be discussing Jeremy McNichols in a couple of minutes, because he is also a very important player to this system, to this team, because I don't believe that this is going to be what it's like when Derrick Henry is there, meaning I don't think that this is going to be a workhorse scenario for Adrian Peterson. I believe that Adrian Peterson will be the number 1 running back for the Tennessee Titans. He will be the guy seeing the most touches. But does that mean that he is going to be in for basically every single snap on offense like Derrick Henry would? That is not what that means. It is going to be that Jeremy McNichols will be seeing usage, but my personal belief is that Adrian Peterson is still good enough to be able to be the number 1 back on the Tennessee Titans, and to me, it doesn't seem like anyone else is going to be moseying their way on into town. The trade deadline is tomorrow. Everyone was talking about how Melvin Gordon was going to get traded here. That didn't end up happening, so it seems like this is going to be Adrian Peterson's job. Last time we saw Mr. All-Day, Mr. AP, Adrian Peterson play was last year with the Detroit Lions. No one signed him in the offseason, and he remained as a free agent all the way until week number 9. So last year, for the Detroit Lions, he played in 16 games with 10 starts, having 156 rushes for 604 yards and 7 touchdowns on the season. He also had 12 receptions on 18 targets for 101 yards. So I still believe that Adrian Peterson will be able to put up good enough numbers this year to be a very reliable fantasy option week in and week out, especially if the team continues to try to run the ball as much as they did with Derrick Henry, which I feel as though is the game plan for the team. So I think they are going to continue to do that with Adrian Peterson. So next up, at number 2, we have Jeremy McNichols, running back also of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the LA Rams in LA. McNichols is very much worth mentioning because at the end of the day, while I am in favor of Adrian Peterson being the guy, I understand a lot of people say, oh, he's too old, blah, 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 blah. We looked at his numbers last year. He was all right. And plus, it's not like he has to play the full 17-game season. We're already in week number 9, so it's not going to be like that. So I do believe that McNichols is also worth adding. I do believe that Adrian Peterson is going to be the guy, but it's also possible that he won't be, so make sure that you add Jeremy McNichols. If you do not have the #1 waiver priority in your league, it is very possible that you will be able to get Jeremy McNichols, because I think in most leagues, Adrian Peterson will be the #1 waiver priority. So far this season for the Titans, Jeremy McNichols has had 7 rushes for 38 yards, as well as having 21 receptions on 27 targets for 203 yards and a touchdown. So when you look at those numbers, and then you look at Adrian Peterson's numbers from last year, you can kind of see how this scenario may unfold. We're going to be seeing Adrian Peterson on 1st and 2nd down, and then on 3rd down, maybe Jeremy McNichols comes in there, because Jeremy McNichols has been doing that a decent amount this season for the team already, and he is a very solid pass-catching back. So again, I think Adrian Peterson is the guy, but you need to make sure you pick up Jeremy McNichols as well. Next up, we move to another running back with Carlos Hyde, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars. James Robinson is reported to have avoided a serious injury, sustaining a bruised heel at the end of the first quarter in their game up against the Seattle Seahawks last week. Does that mean that Robinson is 100% in? Does it mean that Robinson is 100% out this week up against the Buffalo Bills? It is still very much up in the air, and by the time you're doing your waivers on Tuesday night tomorrow, it's probably still going to be just as much up in the air with if James Robinson is going to play or not in this matchup up against the Buffalo Bills. And it would not surprise me at all if Carlos Hyde was the starter in this game, because James Robinson ends up sitting. Hyde played very well after James Robinson went down early on in that game up against the Seattle Seahawks. He had 9 rushes for 32 yards, but more importantly, he had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 40 yards. So Carlos Hyde is not James Robinson. Kind of like how Adrian Peterson is not Derrick Henry at this point in their career. But the situation here is very good, because we know that Urban Meyer has a soft spot for Mr. Carlos Hyde. So I think Carlos Hyde will see a decent workload this week as long as James Robinson is out. This is far from an ideal matchup, but the situation is pretty decent for Carlos Hyde on the Jacksonville Jaguars, as long, obviously, as James Robinson does end up missing. Next up, we got Boston Scott, running back of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the LA Chargers this week. While everyone, including myself, was heavily in favor of Kenneth Gainwell last week, I was banging the drum aggressively. I was talking about how Kenneth Gainwell could be a top 24 running back, a top 12 running back, because this situation is chef's kiss. It's beautiful. It's magnifique up against the Detroit Lions. But in reality, that was the complete opposite of what happened. Nick Sirianni committed to the run. He was like, you know what? We're going to actually run the ball because we can do it up against the Detroit Lions. And it worked beautifully. So having heard that, if you didn't watch the game, you'd be like, oh wow, Kenneth Gainwell probably had an amazing showing. They absolutely destroyed the Lions. That means Kenneth Gainwell, and they're running the ball a lot, that means Kenneth Gainwell probably was a top 10 running back in fantasy football. While you probably thought that, and I thought that's what was going to happen, that was literally the exact opposite of what happened, because it was the Boston Scott and Jordan Howard show. Jordan Howard, who we're going to be talking about a little bit earlier. And like I said, Nick Sirianni was really committing to the run, which has to be very frustrating to anyone who had Miles Sanders on their team. Week 8 up against the Detroit Lions, we saw Boston Scott have 12 rushes for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as a target in that game. Going up against the LA Chargers, this is not the most soft defense to run the rock against, but if Nick Sirianni is going to continue to establish the run in the game, then I'm going to be excited about Boston Scott this week, even though it is a very tough pill to swallow that Kenneth Gainwell was a complete and utter bust last week, and probably will be for the next couple of weeks. But don't be surprised at all if Nick Sirianni does a little bit of trickery and we see so much Kenneth Gainwell this week. I don't think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't, to me, it doesn't seem impossible that some crazy shit like that would end up happening. But before we get into the next player, I would like to let you guys know that we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NFL season to bring you guys some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited time offer, which gives you guys 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via the link down below, deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest, and we'll reach out to you via email with your coupon. If you need immediate access, please email support@awesemo.com and we'll get you set up immediately. You can also claim a free $10 below that can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including tonight's $100,000 Monday Night Baller. Make sure that you guys use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning big. Make sure you guys do check out Yahoo Fantasy. So back on into the video. The next waiver wire ad here is DeVante Parker, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Houston Texans this week. Despite the fact that I honestly I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm wearing the hat. I'm wearing the shirt. I just really don't think DeVante Parker is all that good. But with that said, he's still getting a lot of targets. So even with the potential of Will Fuller coming back, I almost feel as though you have to start Parker. Plus, this week they're going up against the Houston Texans, and the Texans defense could make the worst offense look good. And the Dolphins offense might be up there. If you're looking at worst offenses, they may be one of the worst. DeVante Parker last week up against the Buffalo Bills after missing multiple weeks with an injury has 11 targets, 8 receptions, and 85 yards. You're looking for targets in fantasy football. You're chasing that volume. And again, while I'm not in love with DeVante Parker's skill set, he's still going to be getting fed the rock by Tua Tagovailoa, so I expect DeVante Parker to be worthy of a start this week, thus worthy of a pickup up against the Houston Texans. Next up, we got the other Philly running back, Jordan Howard, running back of the Eagles, going up against the LA Chargers. While it would not be shocking at all if Gainwell just magically gets the touches this week, I do really believe that this is going to be Boston Scott and Jordan Howard's backfield until Miles Sanders ends up returning. When will that be? It seems like there's potential for him to come back in the next couple of weeks. Again, the timeline is not definite at this point. Week 8 up against the Detroit Lions, Jordan Howard had 12 rushes for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. Just a complete and utter kick in the balls to anyone who had Jalen Hurts, anyone who had, obviously, Kenneth Gainwell. Because everyone expected this to be a Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Gainwell combination of greatness. And that's not what it was. It was Jordan Howard, and it was Boston Scott. So again, I don't love Jordan Howard. I understand that he's not the best of running backs, but when they're on the goal line, he is the bigger running back, so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Jordan Howard going forward until Miles Sanders returns. Next up, we got Jamison Crowder, wide receiver of the New York Football Jets, going up against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis on Thursday Night Football. Is it Mike White season? Probably not, right? Probably not. He had that amazing game up against the Bengals, and it seems like, hey, they had this amazing game, and now they get Thursday Night Football, and this will be the biggest letdown state. Jets fans across New York and New Jersey are going to be so pumped up, like so excited. Oh man, we're going to beat the Colts, blah, blah, blah. And then the Colts just absolutely batter them in this game. Is that what's 100% going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think that it's Mike White season. But what I do understand here is that things look way better than I thought they would look with Mike White under center. I thought that without Mr. Zach Wilson, that I would just be done with Jamison Crowder because frankly, even with Zach Wilson playing, I wasn't all that excited about starting Jamison Crowder, but I was confident enough in Zach Wilson's play to be able to do it. But now with Mike White, who actually looks pretty talented, I think that I'm fine playing Jamison Crowder. In Week 8, up against the Bengals, he had 9 targets, 8 receptions, 84 yards. He also had a fumble in that game. If he continues to be fed like he was with Sam Darnold, like he was with Zach Wilson, and like he is right now with Mike White, then the upside for Jamison Crowder is certainly high based upon a high target volume. Next up, we move to a quarterback, Taysom Hill, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Sadly, famous Jameis Winston, steal a crab, eat a W. My man Jameis Winston has a torn ACL. Sad, but it was awesome to see him just dancing after the game. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. He has his crutches are up in the air. He's hitting the dance. It was all fun to see. I hope Jameis Winston has a healthy recovery because in my opinion, the NFL is a much better product when you just on Sunday and it just flips to red zone and you just see Jameis do some crazy shit. To me, that is what makes my Sunday. I love Jameis Winston, but sadly, his season is over and it's Taysom Hill time. And they get to go up against the Atlanta Falcons this week. Now, Taysom Hill, when we're trying to look for his last start, we have to go back to last season up against the Philadelphia Eagles, which was week number 14 of the 2020 fantasy football season, or I guess the NFL season when we're looking at stats. He went 28 of 38, so 28 completions on 38 attempts for 291 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 INT. He is also very good at running the ball, as you may guess, since the guy plays tight end, he plays kick returner, he plays running back, he plays wide receiver, he plays quarterback, probably could play defense as well. So Taysom Hill, he's a jack of all trades. So he had 5 rushes for 33 yards. So great for Taysom Hill in that matchup. I think we could be seeing similar numbers going forward for Taysom Hill and this New Orleans Saints team. They seem to play quite well with the other backup quarterback. Taysom Hill was not there because he was banged up. The expectation is that Taysom Hill is the guy going up against the Atlanta Falcons, and I will be firing him up this week. He will probably be my number 1 streaming option option at the quarterback position, and he may not even be a streamer because he might be a guy that I'm looking to start week in and week out going forward. Next player here, we got Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Arizona Cardinals. A couple of weeks ago, we see Brandon Aiyuk, quote-unquote, escape the doghouse. Holy shit, he's back. No need to panic anymore. He's getting the targets, and then after that, he just fades back away. His nose got out of the doghouse, but he's still trying to get out. He's still trying to get his whole head out, still trying to peek his whole head out. But last week, we saw him actually get some targets up against the Bears. 7 targets, 4 receptions, 45 yards. So I'm not telling you to go fucking crazy and pick up Brandon Aiyuk because people cut him. People might say, oh, Nick, that's crazy. Brandon Aiyuk is not going to be available. Trust me, he's available in over 50% of leagues on the website I was looking at. So Brandon Aiyuk is a guy that you can add. Is he a guy that I want to play this week up against the Cardinals? Probably not, right? I'd rather just kind of have him on my team, let him ride the bench, let him have a nice time on the bench, but don't go out there and play him just yet. I think that's a little bit crazy. But if he does fully escape the doghouse, if he's more consistent, then Brandon Aiyuk has the talent to be a very talented wide receiver for fantasy football. Final player here, we got another wide receiver, Will Fuller, wide receiver of the Dolphins, going up against the Houston Texans in what could be a momentous, a great revenge game. Up against the Dolphins. In reality, the revenge should be from the Miami Dolphins because this man stole $10 million from the Miami Dolphins. Will Fuller has barely played this year and hasn't been successful when he did it, when he was playing, but he's going up against the Texans, and anyone could be successful up against the Texans defense. Plus, he's also a very talented wide receiver, so if he's available on the waiver wire, it seems like he's going to come back this week. I would definitely speculatively add him this week up against the Houston Texans. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy. And you can follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY.